The line behind her is restless, the airport filled with the low hum of tired travelers and rolling suitcases, but in that moment, everything freezes. Danielle stands at the gate, holding her boarding pass like it's proof of her worth, her right to belong. The fluorescent lights flicker above, washing her in a pale, artificial glow. She's exhausted, 32 weeks pregnant, ankles swollen, eyes carrying the softness of someone who has dreamed too much and slept too little. Her smile had been genuine a minute ago. Now it trembles at the edges, fragile like glass ready to shatter. "I don't understand," she says quietly, trying to steady her voice. "This is my seat, 14A. I checked in last night." The gate agent doesn't flinch. Her uniform is crisp, her nails perfectly manicured, her tone clipped and practiced. "Ma'am, there's been a change. The seat is no longer available." The words fall heavy, mechanical, as if rehearsed. Behind the agent, a young flight attendant leans in, whispering something under her breath. A smirk passes between them, quick but sharp enough to cut. Danielle notices. Everyone does, but no one says a word. Her hand presses against her belly, instinctively protective. The baby kicks, as if sensing her unease. "Can you please check again?" she asks, her voice carrying both grace and desperation. "I really need to get home today. My doctor—" "Ma'am," the agent interrupts, her voice rising slightly, "I already told you. That seat is not available. You'll have to wait for the next flight." The next flight, 3 hours later. Danielle feels her throat tighten. Her mother is waiting for her in Atlanta. Her doctor had told her to rest, not to stress. She had saved for weeks to afford this ticket after her baby shower trip. And now she's being told, no, dismissed asterisk, like her presence here is an inconvenience. A man behind her sighs loudly. "Can you just move aside, lady?" Another mutters, "Always some drama." Danielle feels the heat of their eyes on her back. Shame creeps up her neck like fire. She looks down, blinking fast, trying to hold herself together. "Please," she whispers almost to herself, "please just let me board." The manager arrives then, drawn by the tension like it's an inconvenience to his morning routine. His suit is perfectly tailored, his smile thin and tired. He glances at Danielle once, just once, and then at the gate agent. "What's the issue here?" The agent explains briskly, using corporate words like reassignment and policy. He nods along, not really listening, before turning to Danielle. "Ma'am, you'll have to take the next flight. There's nothing we can do." His voice is polite but empty of care, like he's already moved on. Danielle's lips part, but no sound comes. She looks around. The other passengers avert their eyes. A woman scrolls through her phone. A man adjusts his tie. The world keeps spinning even as her stops. "But I confirmed my seat," she says again, softer this time, as if speaking too loudly might make things worse. The manager sighs, that kind of sigh that says he's done with her. "Look," he says, gesturing vaguely, "you can wait by the window, or go to the counter for a voucher, but you're not boarding this flight." The baby kicks again, harder this time. Danielle steadies herself, feeling a rush of anger and humiliation twist inside her chest. She's about to speak when she hears laughter. That same flight attendant from before, whispering, snickering. Danielle turns her head, her eyes wet, her voice trembling. "Is something funny?" she asks quietly. The laughter stops. Silence falls heavy between them. The attendant shrugs, avoiding eye contact. The manager clears his throat. "Ma'am, please don't raise your voice." That's when she realizes it doesn't matter what she says. They've already decided who she is. To them, she's not a mother-to-be, not a paying customer, just another black woman causing a scene. She can feel the label stick to her skin like a scar. At the far end of the terminal, a man watches. His name is Captain Harris. He's been standing by the cockpit door waiting for final boarding clearance. But now he's frozen, eyes fixed on the gate. He sees the manager's dismissive wave, the agent's cold posture, the tears glistening in Danielle's eyes. Something inside him twists. He's seen this before, quiet injustices wrapped in polite smiles. He's watched people get humiliated in slow motion while everyone pretends not to notice. But this feels different. There's something in Danielle's face, exhaustion, dignity, a quiet defiance, that hits him deep. The kind of look that says she's too tired to fight, but too proud to give up. Danielle stands her ground, holding the boarding pass tighter, the paper trembling in her fingers. "You're making a mistake," she says softly. The manager shakes his head. I think you should calm down, ma'am. Calm down, the words burn. She opens her mouth to reply, but before she can, a voice echoes through the terminal. Calm, deep, commanding. What seems to be the problem here? The manager turns, startled. The passengers glance up. Captain Harris steps forward, hat under his arm, posture straight, eyes sharp as steel. The air shifts. Danielle turns to look at him, relief flickering in her expression. The manager's confident tone falters. Just a minor issue, Captain, he says quickly. This passenger's seat was reassigned. The captain looks at Danielle. Without her consent, his tone is quiet, but there's a weight behind it. The manager hesitates. It's standard procedure. For pregnant women, the captain asks, eyes narrowing. Silence. The agent glances down at her computer screen, pretending to type. The passengers are watching now, whispers spreading like ripples across water. Danielle exhales, trembling. For the first time, someone standing beside her, not above her. The captain takes a step closer to the counter. Show me the manifest, he says evenly. The agent hesitates. The manager clears his throat again. Captain, with all due respect, show me the manifest, Harris repeats. The terminal feels smaller now, the hum of conversation fading into silence. The agent clicks through her screen nervously before finally saying, her seat was given to a first-class passenger who requested to move. Danielle blinks, her seat sold just like that. The captain's jaw tightens. You bumped a pregnant woman for a seat upgrade? The manager's face reddens. It's standard policy, he says again, weaker this time. The captain studies him for a long moment, then turns to Danielle. Ma'am, he says gently, please follow me. The agent looks up. But sir, she's boarding this flight, he says firmly, and she'll have my seat. The terminal holds its breath. No one moves. Danielle's eyes widen. Sir, I can't. You can, he says softly, offering his hand. And you will. For the first time all morning, Danielle smiles. A small, trembling smile that carries both gratitude and disbelief. She follows him down the jet bridge, every step heavy with relief. Behind her, the crowd murmurs, some ashamed, some pretending to be busy again. The manager stands still, his authority cracked open in silence. The gate agent looks down at her screen, pretending to type again. And Captain Harris walks ahead, shoulders squared, jaw set, knowing he's just broken a rule, but maybe, just maybe, he's fixed something far greater, something that shouldn't have been broken in the first place. The sound of boarding announcements fades into the background, swallowed by a heavy silence that seems to stretch across the terminal. Danielle sits alone near the window, her boarding pass still crumpled in her hand, her other hand resting on her swollen belly as if shielding her unborn child from the weight of the world pressing down on her. Her eyes glisten, but she refuses to let the tears fall. The laughter of the flight crew echoes faintly from behind the counter, soft, careless laughter that pierces deeper than any insult. One attendant leans into another, whispering just loud enough to be heard. People like her always find a reason to cry. The words land like stones. Danielle exhales slowly, whispering a prayer under her breath. Lord, give me strength, not for me but for this child. Her lips tremble as she speaks, but her spirit stands tall, invisible, and unbroken. From the cockpit window, Captain Harris sees everything. The way she sits with quiet dignity, the way the crew pretends nothing happened, the way the manager leans back smugly like injustice, is just another part of business. Harris has flown for 23 years, across continents and storms, but this moment feels like the worst turbulence he's ever faced. His hands rest on the controls, but his mind is miles away. He remembers his own mother, once turned away from a restaurant in uniform, humiliated while holding his little hand. He remembers the silence of that moment, the way people watched and said nothing. That same silence now fills this airport like a fog. He steps out of the cockpit, removing his cap, his jaw tight. Why was she denied boarding? His voice is calm but carries an authority that demands truth. The supervisor, a man with slicked back hair and too much confidence, doesn't hesitate. She was late to check-in, he says quickly, without even glancing up from his tablet. The lie slides off his tongue smooth as oil. Harris studies him, eyes narrowing. That's not true. I saw her there before half the passengers even arrived. The supervisor finally looks up, meeting the captain's gaze with a thin smile. Sir, this isn't your concern. Let's not make this bigger than it is. The arrogance in his tone sparks something inside Harris. He straightens. It's already bigger than it should have been. Danielle hears the conversation. Her heart beats faster, but she stays seated, her fingers tracing the edge of her boarding pass like it's her last tether to dignity. Then quietly she stands. Every movement is slow, deliberate. Her voice shakes at first, but it grows stronger with every word. I did everything right, she says, her words echoing in the terminal. I checked in, I paid, I waited. You just didn't want me on that plane. Heads turn. A few passengers glance up from their phones. One woman looks away quickly, pretending to adjust her luggage. A young man quietly hits record on his phone, sensing something important is happening. The manager's smile falters. Ma'am, please sit down, he says, trying to regain control. Danielle doesn't move. You embarrassed me, in front of everyone, and now you want me to sit quietly like it didn't happen. Her voice cracks. For a moment, the sound of planes taxiing outside fills the silence. The supervisor smirks, glancing at Harris as if to say, see what I mean, but Harris doesn't flinch. He steps closer to Danielle, his presence steady and grounding. You're right, he says quietly, so only she can hear at first. You deserve better. Then louder to everyone, I saw what happened, and I can't be part of this. The words hang in the air like thunder after lightning. The manager blinks, stunned. Excuse me, he asks, as if he didn't hear correctly. Harris doesn't repeat himself. He doesn't need to. The entire crew stops moving. The gate agent freezes mid-gesture. The passengers go still. Harris looks straight at the manager, his expression unreadable. If she can't fly, neither will I. Gasps ripple through the terminal. Someone drops a coffee cup. The manager's face turns pale, his confidence crumbling. Captain, he stammers, you can't just… I can, Harris says simply, and I will. He glances at Danielle, his eyes soft now, filled with empathy and quiet defiance. I don't know what kind of company this is becoming, he continues, his voice steady, but I won't stand by while a pregnant woman is treated like she doesn't matter. The passengers murmur among themselves. Some nod subtly, others look down, ashamed that they hadn't spoken sooner. The flight attendant who had laughed earlier lowers her gaze, guilt spreading across her face. The manager tries to recover, forcing a nervous laugh. Captain, please don't do this. We'll sort it out later. Just let's get everyone boarded. But Harris doesn't move. Sort it out later, he repeats, his tone sharp. When she's already been humiliated, when your crew already decided she doesn't deserve respect, the tension thickens. The gate agent shifts uncomfortably, whispering to the supervisor, maybe we should just let her on. The manager shoots her a warning look. No. If we make an exception once, it sets a precedent. Harris turns to him, then let this be the precedent. Danielle's eyes fill again, but this time not with shame. With something else, hope, gratitude. She whispers softly, why are you doing this? Harris looks at her, his voice quiet but firm. Because silence is a choice too, and I'm done choosing it. The crowd around them is silent now, hanging on every word. Even the intercom announcements fade into the background. The baby kicks again, a small reminder of the life she's fighting for. Danielle breathes deeply, steadying herself. She's no longer trembling. She stands tall, her pain transforming into strength. The manager rubs his temples, realizing he's lost control. Fine, he says sharply. You both can stay off the flight then. Harris doesn't blink, if that's what it takes. He turns toward the window, looking out at the tarmac where the plane sits waiting, sunlight glinting off its wings. For a moment, no one moves. Then slowly, one of the passengers, a middle-aged woman, steps forward. She deserves to fly, she says softly. Another joins in. Yeah, this isn't right. One by one, murmurs rise, spreading like a quiet storm. The crowd that had been silent moments ago now stirs, the weight of guilt transforming into courage. The manager stares, speechless. Danielle lowers her head, overcome by emotion. She never asked for a hero, she just wanted fairness. But in that instant, she realizes something. Sometimes justice doesn't come from shouting. It comes from one person refusing to look away. Harris turns back to her, giving a small nod. It's not a grand gesture, it's human, real, the kind that stays with you forever. The gate falls silent once more. Somewhere in the distance, another plane lifts off, its engines roaring like a heartbeat of change. The manager finally breaks the stillness. Get her rebooked, he mutters, his voice small now. Now. The gate agent nods quickly, typing fast, eyes wide with shame. Harris steps aside, letting Danielle pass. As she walks by, she looks up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you. He smiles faintly. Don't thank me, he says. Just promise me one thing. Don't ever stay quiet again. The scene lingers in silence. The passengers watch as she walks away, slow but steady, the morning light pouring through the windows like grace. The world outside keeps moving, but inside that terminal something has shifted. The silence that once protected injustice has been broken, and for the first time that morning, Danielle feels light, not because the pain is gone, but because someone finally saw it. Someone finally said, enough. The sound of gasps fills the air, sharp and stunned, like the collective breath of a world that's just been caught off guard. Every head in the terminal turns, every whisper stops. Captain Harris stands tall at the gate, his pilot's cap trembling slightly in his hand, his chest rising and falling like he's carrying the weight of a storm inside him. His voice breaks through the silence, low but commanding. A woman carrying life was denied dignity today, he says, eyes scanning the crowd. If that's how we fly, then I no longer belong in the sky. His words don't shout, they land asterisk, heavy, honest, final. The crew rushes forward, panic written all over their faces. Captain, you can't just walk away, one of them pleads. The supervisor takes a step closer, his voice cracking under the pressure. Harris, let's handle this later, please. But Harris doesn't look at him. He places the cap gently on the counter, his hands steady now. No, he says softly, almost to himself. Later is what's wrong with this world. Everyone wants to handle it later. The room goes still. For a heartbeat, it feels like the world outside, planes taking off, people moving, has paused, waiting to see what this man will do next. Danielle stands by the corner, clutching her belly, her heart pounding in her chest. She can hardly breathe. Her entire body trembles, not from fear but from disbelief. She had never seen anyone, especially someone in uniform, stand up for her like this. Not in public, not with risk. She can feel the baby kicking again, and somehow it feels like hope, like this tiny life inside her is listening too. A young woman nearby, tears welling in her eyes, raises her phone and starts recording. The captain just walked off for her, she whispers to her followers. The red light blinks. The video is live. Within minutes, it will be everywhere, on phones, on feeds, in hearts that haven't felt outrage in years. But right now, in this moment, it's just silence and truth colliding in the middle of a crowded airport. The airline manager steps forward, his confidence finally cracking. Captain, please, he says in a low, urgent tone, there's no need for this. She can board now. His words trip over themselves, desperate to sound like compassion but soaked in fear. Harris turns to face him slowly, his eyes filled with disappointment deeper than anger. Not because you changed your heart, he says, voice trembling, only because you got caught. The manager opens his mouth, but no words come out. His face flushes red, his authority slipping through his fingers like sand. Around him, his crew stands frozen, unsure whether to follow orders or their conscience. One attendant wipes her eyes quietly, another lowers her head. The terminal is no longer a place of travel. It's a courtroom, and truth is delivering its verdict. Danielle tries to speak, but her voice catches. Sir, I don't know what to say. Harris looks at her, his expression softening. You don't have to say anything, he replies gently. You've already said enough just by standing here. He steps closer, lowering his voice. I'm sorry, he says, for what my uniform represented today, for every time it meant silence instead of justice. His words cut through her like light through darkness. No one has ever apologized to her like that, so full of sincerity, so stripped of ego. She nods, tears spilling down her cheeks, her hand trembling as she places it over his. The touch is brief, but it carries something sacred, something unspoken between two strangers bound by decency. The crowd watches, unsure whether to clap or cry. A man in a business suit lowers his phone, shaking his head in disbelief. A mother squeezes her son's hand tighter, whispering, "That's what a real man looks like." Even the flight attendants, once whispering behind the counter, now stand silently, guilt-heavy in their eyes. The manager clears his throat again, trying to regain control. "Captain, you're making a scene," he says, voice trembling. Harris doesn't even turn around. "No," he says, "you made a scene when you took her seat. I'm just giving the story an ending worth remembering." His words hang there, unshakable. Then slowly he turns to Danielle and extends his hand. "Let's walk out together," he says softly. She hesitates at first, glancing around, unsure. The idea of walking away from that plane feels impossible. For weeks, this flight had meant home, safety, rest. But now, standing beside this man who refused to stay silent, she realizes something deeper. This moment is bigger than a destination. It's about dignity. It's about walking out of humiliation and into humanity. She takes his hand. Their fingers interlock, her small, trembling hand against his firm, steady one, and together they take the first step. The sound of their footsteps echoes through the terminal, a rhythm of defiance and grace. Each step feels like a heartbeat. Each heartbeat feels like a statement. Passengers stand to their feet, watching silently. Some nod, some cry. A few start clapping, hesitant at first, then louder, stronger, until the entire terminal fills with the sound of hands coming together. The applause isn't for rebellion. It's for truth, for courage, for a moment that reminds everyone what it means to be human. The manager stands frozen, powerless, as the captain and the pregnant woman walk away from the gate. His words fall flat, his authority useless in the face of something pure. The plane sits waiting outside the window, engines humming, ready to take off, but it feels wrong now, heavy, as if even the sky knows it's not ready to carry the weight of what just happened. Danielle and Harris keep walking, their reflections gliding across the polished floor, light pouring in from the tall glass windows. She feels the baby move again, a soft flutter against her ribs. She smiles faintly through her tears. "He's moving," she whispers. Harris looks at her, his expression calm. "Then maybe he knows," he says gently, "that the world just changed a little for him today." They reach the terminal doors. The sunlight floods in, warm and golden, wrapping them in quiet peace. The noise behind them fades, the chaos, the whispers, the shame, all left behind. For the first time all day, Danielle breathes freely. She looks back one last time. The crowd is still there, watching, recording, remembering. Maybe tomorrow the headlines will twist it. Maybe the airline will issue statements and apologies, but this moment, this walkout, belongs to the truth. Outside, the breeze carries the faint roar of another jet taking off. Harris glances up at the sky, the world he once ruled, the one he's just walked away from. His voice drops to a whisper. "I thought flying was freedom," he says, "but maybe freedom starts when you stop following." Danielle looks at him, her voice barely a breath. "You gave it back to me," she says. He shakes his head softly. "No," he replies, "you already had it. You just needed someone to remind you." And together they step out into the sunlight, two souls who chose dignity over comfort, truth over silence. Behind them, the plane waits at the gate, its engines quiet now, almost ashamed. The world will keep spinning, the flights will keep flying, but everyone who stood in that terminal will remember the day a captain gave up his wings so a woman could keep her pride. The morning light spilled across the airport like honey, soft, golden, and full of promises. The kind of light that makes strangers look gentler and the world, for a brief second, seem fair. Danielle stood by the check-in counter, her hand resting on the curve of her belly, her other hand gripping her boarding pass like it held her future. She was tired but glowing, 8 months pregnant, and still moving through the world with quiet grace. She had just said goodbye to her friends after her baby shower, a small gathering filled with laughter, ribbons, and pink balloons. Now she was heading home, her heart a mix of exhaustion and excitement, ready to see her husband again. When her turn came, she smiled at the gate agent, a practiced, polite smile that most black women learn to wear early in life, the kind that says, "I come in peace." The agent, a white woman in a crisp uniform, didn't return it. Her eyes flickered from Danielle's stomach to her face and then down to the boarding pass. "Ma'am," she said flatly, her tone all business, no warmth. "This seat isn't available anymore." Danielle blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. "I'm sorry," she said softly, but I confirmed it last night. I even checked in online." The agent sighed, the kind of sigh that said she'd already decided how this story would end. "Well, it's been reassigned. You can take the next flight, or you can request a refund online." A chill passed through Danielle's body, replacing all that morning warmth. She looked around, expecting anyone, to say this was a mistake. The passengers behind her shifted impatiently. Someone muttered, "Here we go again." Danielle swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I'm 8 months pregnant. I can't wait another 6 hours for the next flight. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Please, just check again." But the agent didn't even look at the computer. "There's nothing I can do." Behind her, a flight attendant leaned against the boarding door, whispering something to her colleague. A low laugh followed, sharp and mean. Danielle felt it slice through her chest. A manager appeared then, tall, polished, every step heavy with authority. His badge gleamed under the airport lights. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his eyes not on Danielle, but on the line she was holding up. "She's refusing to move," the agent said quickly. "I'm not refusing," Danielle said, her voice trembling. "I'm just asking for the seat I paid for." The manager folded his arms. "Ma'am, we've reallocated it. You can take the next flight or file a complaint online, that's all." The way he said "ma'am" felt like an insult. Cold, clipped, a word meant to end the conversation. The crowd was watching now. A few curious, some annoyed, most silent. No one spoke up. Not one. Danielle could feel the sting of humiliation rise up her throat like bile. She looked down at her belly, whispering under her breath, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's okay," but her hands were shaking. Someone in line scoffed, always causing a scene. That was the moment something inside her cracked. All the exhaustion, all the quiet patience she'd carried, it spilled out in her trembling words. "You're treating me like I did something wrong. I didn't. I did everything right." The manager's expression didn't change. "Please step aside, ma'am." The agent nodded toward security, subtle but clear. Danielle's eyes widened. "You're calling security? For what?" "For asking for my seat." No one answered. The flight attendant laughed again, soft enough to seem innocent but loud enough for Danielle to hear. And that laughter, it broke her completely. Her lip quivered, her breath hitched, tears welled in her eyes, hot and unwanted. She pressed a hand against her belly again, whispering, "I'm sorry, baby, I'm so sorry." Then, through the murmuring crowd, a deep, steady voice cut through the air. "What's going on here?" It was calm but carried weight, the kind that made people turn. Standing at the cockpit doorway in full uniform was Captain Harris, the pilot. His presence was quiet but commanding. Tall, dark-skinned, with streaks of gray at his temples, he had the kind of dignity that couldn't be faked. The manager straightened. "Everything's fine, Captain, just a minor issue." But Harris didn't look at him. His eyes were on Danielle, on her tears, her trembling hands, her humiliation playing out in front of strangers. Something in his face hardened. His jaw tightened. His eyes, once calm, professional, now carried a storm. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate. The crowd parted without realizing it. Danielle lifted her eyes to him, searching his face for some trace of kindness, and found it. He didn't speak, not yet, but his silence was louder than all the noise around them. The manager shifted nervously. "Captain, we're boarding soon." "I can see that," Harris said softly, his voice controlled, but inside he felt something else. Rage, disgust, shame that he wore the same uniform as the people standing in front of him. He watched as Danielle lowered her head again, trying to disappear into the crowd, her dignity slipping away one cruel second at a time. He thought of his own mother, how she'd once been told to wait outside at a doctor's office when she was 8 months pregnant with him. He thought of how she'd never told that story until years later, her voice breaking halfway through. He couldn't let that same silence swallow this woman too. From across the gate, a small child tugged at his mother's sleeve and whispered, "Why, that lady crying?" The mother hushed him quickly, but Captain Harris had heard it, and so had Danielle. She pressed her lips together, trying not to cry harder. The manager clapped his hands, trying to move things along. "Let's keep it moving, folks. Nothing to see here." But there was everything to see. A woman being told she didn't belong, a crowd too afraid to care, a system that treated decency like a privilege. Harris turned slightly, looking toward the plane he was supposed to fly, then back to Danielle. Her eyes met his, two people standing on opposite sides of power, yet suddenly sharing the same ache. And in that single exchange, without words, something inside him broke too. He didn't step forward, not yet, but as the gate closed behind the last passenger and Danielle sat alone in that terminal chair, wiping her tears with trembling hands, he stood there, frozen, his chest heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. He knew this wasn't over. He knew the moment would haunt him long after takeoff, because deep down he'd seen too much of this world already, and this time he couldn't just fly away from it. The engines roared in the distance, ready to lift a plane into the sky, but for Captain Harris, the air had never felt heavier. And somewhere between that silence and the sound of the boarding door closing, one truth echoed in his heart, quiet but fierce. Not this time, not again.